I sat down in the living room with the scissors and cut it into 16,000 1 ounce packets.
Whoa.
And shipped it back to London and sold it for 50 pence each. I mean, I sold my guy his 10,000, and then I kept some for myself. And I thought, let me go and see, what could they really be doing with this stuff?
And we're here. We're about to start another interview, another cover story interview, and I'm here drinking my herbal teas.
Which one do you have?
There's only one herbal tea that I really rave about and love, and it's my Dalgety Cerisy tea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cerisy is just the best. Some people might not like it because it's bitter. I know you don't like it necessarily. You prefer the honey and ginger. But listen, we're going to actually speak to the founder of Dalgety Teas. So, hey, let's welcome Mr. Mark Dalgety. Hey, Mark, welcome, my brother.
Hi, Mark.
Hello, good morning, Judy, Colin. Thank you for inviting me to your show, to the Bitch Back magazine show. It's always a pleasure, Like me, you're on a journey. So, I mean, it's always good for us to communicate and correspond with what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Mark, it's good to see you again, my brother. I'm here with my Dalgety Cerisy.
Okay, nice one. I'm drinking the one. I'm drinking the one even more bitter than yours. It's called Neem.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, Mark,
that's even more. I don't think Judy would like that at all. Sorry?
Okay. We're going to have to put that on our list.
It's called Neem. It's even more bitter than Cerisy. But I end the day with Cerisy, but I started with Neem. And then I might drink some of the nicest stuff during the day, the gingers or so.
Wow. Yeah, we love the ginger as well. Wow. Instant honey and ginger.
Yes. Serious tea drinker. Do you know what, Mark? Every time I think about the teas, and it takes me back to my childhood where, you'd have your parents come in the room and visitors would come and say, "You want a cup of tea?" And you're thinking, okay, someone's going to get sent now to go to the kitchen to make the tea. But we know in our Black culture, our Caribbean, African culture, tea is not just tea. So then it's like, what tea you want? The Cerisy, the lemon, the
exactly,
chocolate tea.
Coffee tea.
Tea is essentially anything hot in a cup.
Yeah,
absolutely. I said to people, I mean, that's why in the early days I always said to people, then, in the Caribbean, everything is a flavor. You know what I mean? Tea is all variants of flavors. I mean, we call it bush tea these anyhow. And I mean, nobody says I only drink Coca-Cola. There's Coca-Cola, there's orange juice, there's Sprite, or so forth. But we drink tea in that format. It's different versions depending on how you feel, depending on, I mean, the time of the year, a health condition or whatever, we have a tea for everything.
I hear that.
That's it.
So, Mark, I've known you for a while.
Yes.
I think I remember meeting you when I worked at a travel agent down in Hackney many moons
That's
ago.
So well back.
Yeah. And I remember meeting you then, and I hadn't seen you for a while, and then we reconnected at an awards ceremony. I think it was earlier this year or last year, one of them.
Last year, yes. Black Recommendation.
Yeah, that's the one. So it's good to see you, my brother. And of course, we're hearing some great things about you and your brand. And we just wanted to kind of connect with you, hear your story, and just, be inspired by your journey and to inspire our readers and listeners. So, hey, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background. Where was Mark born? Go to school, all of that.
Okay.
Just to set the scene.
Okay. Well, I was born in London, actually in Chiswick. My parents are of Guyanese origin. They were both students in the 60s. So at the early stage, whilst they were studying, they actually sent me back to Guyana at 1 year old. So, it's funny. A lot of Guyanese don't know that I'm actually born in the UK, and most people in the UK think I'm actually born in Guyana. So, I think in a way, I think I was lucky in a way because I mean, I've managed to get the best of both worlds by growing up, all my formative years in the UK, in Guyana, and then coming and studying in the UK, and then going back to Guyana, and sort of like taking the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, my family background pretty much science-based people. I mean, my dad is an industrial chemist. My aunt is also a chemist who wrote the integrated science book for the Caribbean Examination Council. My sister's also a chemical engineer. I studied chemical engineer. But then before that, my grandparents were farmers. Had cattle farms, with pig farms, and so on the weekends I spent a lot of time on pretty much with my grandfather on his farm. Whether we had rice fields also, so I would be with my cousins learning to milk the cows, feed the pigs, feed the poultry. Then we had to take the cows out to graze in farms because my grandfather had over 100 cattle, to tell the truth. I think sometimes he got into a lot of trouble with it because there's so many cattle that, I mean, I can remember the small boys sometimes, the traffic when they know that they'll get these cattle is coming out from the pasture, the taxi drivers used to try and rush to make sure they don't get delayed because the cows will be coming out, but that was pretty much, I mean, and I always wanted to do agriculture, which was interesting, but I ended up studying chemical engineer, but then indirectly ended up back in a processing manner with an agricultural product. Because when I studied chemical engineer, my early days, I actually originally felt that I wanted to go and work in Saudi Arabia in the petroleum industry.
Right.
And indirectly I landed in this herbal tea business, which herbal in terms of the fact is an agro-processing sort of product. But then the processing part is where my chemical engineer skills come in place, which is all about processing and manufacturing systems.
Yeah.
So I mean, my passion is actually more, I mean, especially in the early days, is more about looking at products that they have in the Caribbean that I feel are underused or underpackaged or underpresented to the world. And pretty much that's normally my drive is really looking at products of which tea is the first one or the main one I'm doing. I'm still trying to perfect the global push for it. Is really looking at products like that because, as I said, in the Caribbean we grew up, we call this stuff bush tea. It's basically literally you just go in the back of your yard or whatever and you just pick it off the fence or whatever and you put it in the pot and you boil it. And Bob is your uncle, that's it. That's your tea, I mean, what I basically identify is that why don't you actually package this stuff properly, put it in a tea bag, so I could walk from here to China and feel with my head in the air and present it to any consumer in the world to enjoy a taste of the Caribbean, and that's pretty much the concept, of what my passion is really all about, I would say,
Yeah.
But I mean,
sorry, Mark, carry on.
Yeah. No, I mean, then I was going to speak to you. I mean, obviously, you would probably ask me how I started business. It wasn't actually anything to do with my passion, actually. And I say I actually started business in probably the most unconventional manner. It's actually because I was broke. I mean, most people start a business because they have some money and they have some sort of ideology. I can't say I diligently researched and knew I was going to make herbal teas. I mean, I was busy, after I finished studying, I was busy trying to relocate to Guyana, but unfortunately had a mortgage in London. And during trying to do that, I ran totally flat broke and was looking for opportunities of how I could be based in Guyana, but earn pounds. And one day, I had a friend with mine do some pineapple shipments to Barbados. So I was looking at different things, and I walked into Brixton Market. I met an old Guyanese Chinese shopkeeper who asked me if I could get what he called cerasee. In Guyana, we actually don't call it cerasee. In Guyana, we actually call it corilla bush. Whereby in Jamaica, they call it cerasee bush.
Yeah.
So I said to him, well, what is cerasee? He said, this corilla bush. I mean, could I get some of that from Guyana for him? And I said to him, well, I mean, it's corilla bush all over, in the cane fields and various places, growing wild. And I said to him, how much would you like to get? And he said, any amount. So that pricked my ears. I said, I mean, any amount. I mean, that's a very large number. I mean, any amount is a humongous number. So I said, okay, well, if you want it in packets, it's 1,000 packets. He said, that's fine. I said, 5,000. He said, 10,000, 20,000. He said, yes. And the casualness of what he said is, I mean, that he felt he could have sold about 10 to 20,000 of these packets, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, okay, but I mean, I know he was a serious business person, and I mean, I literally took the leap of faith. And I mean, I looked at my credit card available. I had £1,000 available because I just arrived in London. I didn't really want to be there because I was approaching the cool season in the first place. So I literally just bought the next ticket, about £500, and headed straight back to Guyana within 2 days. Because I know in the rural areas where my grandparents were, there was a lot of the same Cerise bush growing, So I literally went and collected about £1,000 of this Cerise bush, and took it home. Luckily, my parents weren't there, and I sat down in the living room with the scissors and cut it into 16,000 1-ounce packets, and shipped it back to London and sold it for 50 pence each. I mean, I sold my guy his 10,000, and then I kept some for myself, and I thought, let me go and see, what could they really be doing with this stuff here? Because I mean, whilst I was living in London, and most of my shopping was based on just going to the more modern, Safeways, Sainsbury's, Tesco supermarkets to buy my grocery. I never really ventured much into what I will call the normal, rural markets, that often, So I went off to see what was going on, and then on another day in traveling, I sold some of the packets. I got a bit more margin for that. And then back in Brixton again seems to be the melting pot. Indian shop people was laughing and saying to me in a jovial manner, you call this packet of loose bush tea. Where's the tea bag? And we laughed about it, and I said, well, we call it tea, bush tea, our tea, you know what I mean? And but then that word tea bag just stuck in my head like nobody's business, and it then dawned on me that, I mean, with a bit more research, that what the Europeans are in 25 years ago was calling herbal teas was really bush tea in a tea bag. Yeah, literally that was what it was. I mean, and on more research, I realized that most of the herbal teas that they were doing were always using a lot of artificial flavorings. So I thought, well, why won't I just introduce the UK market or the European market to a 100% natural, strong, flavored, authentic herbal tea, which aka bush tea from the Caribbean, with some proper Caribbean tropical flavors, of which obviously the first one was Cerise, not the best tasting one, but most West Indians, use that for diabetes, blood pressure, cleansing your face and your blood and so forth, and pretty much that's how the journey started, with regards to how I started, or probably why I started the business,
Okay,
really good.
That's encouraging to hear.
You've shared so much there, and you can hear the passion, and you've kind of like covered a lot of the questions that I wanted to find out about. What were you doing before, how and why you started the business, and that's really incorporated so much there. Wonderful stuff. It was really good to hear your passion coming through when you were talking about how you got started. Very interesting. So that's a new one for us. You started because you were broke, not because you wanted to, you had this burning passion, and I'm going to do this. Really good stuff. I'd like to hear the variety of different starting points. So you mentioned that you were thinking about heading to Saudi Arabia. So that was the plan, and you've kind of like fallen into the teas business. Was there a different plan before that, or was it always chemical engineering and to be employed, or to be self-employed?
I think I always knew in some shape or form I was going to have my own business, because I mean, I've always wanted to be independent anyhow. But I always felt I was what I was going to do is try and get some more experience in industry, before I did that, So when I finished my degree, I actually did work a year with an American company as a process plant manager, process engineer. But then within a year, I kind of just felt I just wanted to go back to Guyana anyhow, because I mean the idea is that I mean I felt that if I could be in Guyana but earn pounds, that would although it would be less money than I'm earning in UK, because the quality of living would have been much better.
Yeah.
So that would have been my ideal situation. But I definitely wanted to, somewhere along the line, I think I always had a business increment, because even as a kid growing up in Guyana, I was one of the what you call popular party promoters or dance promoters. I mean, I was pretty tall for my age. Since I was 13, I used to keep all these big sound systems. I mean, people thought I was about 18 or 19 until, because I was very tall, so I could get away with a bit of a murder. But I was actually only about 13 years. I used to have these big sound system flashes and so forth in Guyana in the early days when I think the music systems was moving from your normal jukebox or small stereo to the big bombastic systems,
Yeah.
And I had a
And then
friend with
13-year-olds should be in their bed.
yes. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So Mark Delgetti was a sound promoter back in the day.
Yeah. Big sound clash and all that stuff with Quantum and Toots with the big sound systems in those days,
Kilimanjaro, Stone Love.
Yes. In Guyana, I was very much into it. I could remember my dad one time, he came, he thought it was a normal little kiddies party, and he was surprised when he saw about, I don't know, 400 or 500 people in this dance and big Rastamen selling cane and idle food outside. You know what I mean? And there's me with a box collecting money at the gate. I think he was too embarrassed to embarrass me. So he just stood up from a distance and then left.
Oh man.
Because he thought I was having a little teenage party that I was having. He didn't realize it was a big commercial entity I was running.
I'm telling you.
Oh my.
He didn't want to knock the hustle.
And no, I'm telling you.
That's brilliant.
When somebody's so embarrassed they embarrass you, what I mean? You're come on, get home now, But it was just he stood up from a distance, and I just made out as though I didn't see him, because I know if he made my eye contact, he would probably call me to come out there. He stood up from a distance for 15, 20 minutes, and then I saw him quietly get back in his car and left. And then the next morning he said, "Is that the party you keep it?"
Oh dear. Wow.
I reckon he was secretly really proud of what you've done, because
Yeah,
most
probably
13-year-olds are
ultimately.
not that entrepreneurial.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Oh dear.
So who were some of your early role models growing up? I remember you were saying that you were from an industrial chemical background, so most of your father, your
grandfather,
your
agriculture.
auntie, all of those people were chemical engineers or involved in industrial chemistry. Who were some of your role models growing up?
I think I have many role models. I mean, I'm trying to identify, because everyone had their own different skill set. I mean, I love my grandfather, because I mean he had his farm going, and he was very simple guy, very quiet, very big, tall in structure. He's a gentle giant, basically. My mom was inspiration. She was actually more a sociologist, but very a very focused kind of woman, and always used to say, "Mark, you must learn to listen," because I always yapping away. You learn to listen, what I mean? Or learn to be patient, because I was also pretty much impatient. But then, interestingly, as much as my dad's side, there were a lot more people with science oriented. On my mom's side, most of like my grandfather on my mom's side, they were seafaring people, so they were always worked at sea. I mean, my grandfather in the forties in Norway and on all these big ships. Then a lot of my cousins, so they used to come back and speak a lot about all kinds of different things about foreign lands. So I don't know if that is one of the things that has me have my vision, where when I think of things, I think globally. I mean, as you know, I'm in Ghana and Nigeria. I'm trying to sell to South Africa. It's like this fearlessness about going anywhere to sell. I don't know if that is stemmed from listening to the adventurous stories from my cousins that were all working at sea and going to all these distant places, on these big ships. And this is like early days, I mean, as I said, my grandfather probably is the one who started it. He actually even died at sea, but in the 30s, 40s, 50s, all of them, were into were seamen, you know.
Mm.
Then combined obviously with the whole science and technology and agricultural base, might have been a combination of what made me who I am, you know.
Hmm.
Yes,
But
yes.
can I ask then, what was your experience of black business before becoming a black business owner? I'm just thinking back to that, the tea and the guy laughing at where's the tea bag sort of thing, you know. So what was your experience and expectation with black owned businesses before you came into it?
So my experiences of black businesses before I started,
Yeah.
is that a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never really identified or looked at what if there was any difference between black businesses and other businesses. Before I started business, I literally I just look at business as straight. But saying that, I did like reading entrepreneurial books on black entrepreneurs, which normally was coming from an underprivileged situation. Like one of two of my greatest books that I probably read 5 times was "Succeeding Against the Odds" by J.R. Johnson, who built Ebony magazine. You know, and then there's one that's called "Why Should White Men Have All the Fun" by Reginald Lewis.
Reginald
Yeah.
F. Lewis. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So
That's also one of my favorites.
those two books are pretty much my Bible. During in my early days, I mean, like every year I probably read both of them, and then other guys like Lee Iacocca, who built Ford,
Yeah.
Alan Sugar, and then the latter part I read Virgin. But I'm always gravitated towards the black entrepreneurs. I mean, my biggest idol right now is really Dangote in Nigeria, really and truly as
Yeah.
a business
Aliko.
person.
Yeah.
He's the person that I look up to with absolute respect and try to see what he's doing. And I'm always intrigued with how he's managed to navigate through a country like Nigeria to build.
Yeah.
I mean, he's recently now gotten into building an oil refinery. He's
Yeah.
worth what, 25 billion US dollars. So I admire and follow guys like that.
That's fantastic. I knew there was a reason I liked you, Mark, because two of those people and books you mentioned, John H. Johnson, founder of Ebony, one of my personal role models, and also
Mhm.
Reginald F. Lewis, the TLC group. He was at one point the wealthiest black guy in America, and
Yes.
he was a force. He was a force of nature. So
Hmm.
I can see the
Yes.
synergies.
Yes.
So, Mark, can I ask you, what are some of the key points along the journey of developing your business? The key points.
I would say the key point is, I mean, first of all, you have to identify the product that you're doing right, or the product you want to do. And then the next thing is actually looking for a USP, which is a unique selling point, with regard to that product. Because, I mean, every product out there has got something that, even that is out there at the moment, has something that might not be offered. And I mean, it's for you to identify something that is missing that a consumer that needs or is
Yeah.
looking for. Then once you find that unique selling point, then the next thing is to identify who do you want to sell your products to. What sector, because you can't just attack everyone. I mean, you can, but I mean, it makes it very difficult to succeed. You have to understand who are your targeted audience, where they are, where these audience are positioned, and then
Yeah.
you craft your journey along that lines. So the two key things: identify the product you want to. What is the unique selling point about your product? Identify your consumer base. Yeah, and then that is the beginning of starting your journey.
Mm.
Yeah. So, and then can you elaborate in terms of how you've developed Dalgety Teas?
Well, I mean, in the case of Dalgety Teas, I mean, the first thing, I mean, I go back to using mathematical principles. I said, I mean, I start by using what they call the root of least resistance. So my consumer base, as much as I mean, the first thing is, yes, I'm going to sell to everyone in England because they're not making proper herbal teas. I soon realized that to sell to everyone in England will involve a substantial amount of capital to marketing the product. Because then two things will happen. Some of the herbal teas that I was going to be introducing to the market, mainstream consumers would not necessarily know all of the flavors or the benefit of using them, right? So I would have to educate them, which costs a lot of money. Whereby, on the other hand, if I introduce it to people, the migrant population, which is people from the Caribbean, which is made up of people from, the Caribbean, a fusion of people. So, Caribbean is made up of, whether it's blacks, Indians, Chinese, Portuguese, various people that came during the journey of the Caribbean, Syrians or whatever. So I basically decided to target just the ethnic market, which I call the route of least resistance, which is anywhere that had a high population of people from Africa, Asia, or the Caribbean. Yeah. So that is basically where I targeted. And so I literally, unfortunately, 25 years ago, there wasn't no Google. Well, there probably was Google. I didn't know there was Google. I was just using the Yellow Pages and the consensus book. So I just went into the library and I literally, first of all, used the book of consensus that literally showed you where all the high ethnic areas in the UK were. All the inner parts of London, that is Harlesden, Brixton, Dalston, Hackney. So I realized that I'm looking for those consumers. And then I looked for the consumers where they were moving out, like say Luton, Birmingham, where in Birmingham they were, where in Manchester they were, where in Leeds they were, and focused purely on those areas. And then I took the same Yellow Pages and photocopied all the pages with the grocery shops in these areas, and literally put the products in my briefcase and started moving from shop to shop. Literally, I would basically do the whole the A23, which basically starts at Elephant and Castle. And I would stop at every single shop all the way right through into Croydon. Just every living single shop. Or if I do the A24, which starts from Elephant, but that is the one that goes through Balham, Tooting, all the way to Colliers Wood into Morden. And I would stop at every single shop and present my product. Because in those early days, it's a numbers game. And what you find is that it's almost every 10 shops that you go to, you might probably get one sale. Yeah?
Okay.
But then as the product develops, it might go down to 8, then it will go down to 5. It's never one, every single one. Yeah? But once you get about, probably about within every 10 shops, you get about 4, you're actually pretty successful. 5 is absolutely great. So some of the tricks I would do is that once I got a shop in a block, for instance, you would always have 1 or 2 competitors, right? So if I get one of them in that block to take it, I would always park my car the next block so that every time I'm delivering to the guy who's bought from me, I make sure I walk slowly across the ones who's saying no. Even if it's a long way to walk, just so they could see me delivering to the competition. So by the time next time I go back to them, they'll want to know, the competition is buying, and what is she buying? I'm going to have one too, or I'm going to have some of it too, So that used to be the early tricks in the trade, in terms of building the market, So, in terms of the whole supply chain, I focused mainly like on the North Circular first. Once I gotten that established, I then moved into Luton, Birmingham, Manchester, Sheffield. And the other page that I used to actually photocopy in the Yellow Pages was all the bread and breakfasts around the country. Because normally, especially when you're going out of town, I just load my car and I would only come back into London or head back home until the cheese is sold. So sometimes, you could find yourself 7, 8 o'clock in Birmingham, Manchester, and you just, instead of me now having to work out, as I said, there was no quick Google situation. So I would basically, just look in my bread and breakfast photocopy pages and look for the nearest bread and breakfast that might be in Sheffield in Town Centre or Manchester Town Centre that I could go and stay at before I continue selling and then head back to London. So there's a lot of paper those days. These days a guy could just have a phone and that's it. I had all these files, a file for the bread and breakfasts, a file for the shops, the supermarkets, the health food shops, and that's pretty much how the brand was built. And it got a bit heavy for me eventually. I had over 1,000 shops all over the country where I personally was trying to sell to. And it got a bit ridiculous when, in the morning the phone ring and you have 4 or 5 guys in London, 4 or 5 guys in Birmingham, a guy in Manchester, a guy in Liverpool, all saying they need some tea tomorrow. So I then strategized, whilst I was doing sales on the road, I would meet, small wholesalers, which would be a guy in a van that is covering South London. So I started speaking to some of them if they could look after some of the customers that I'd already accumulated, and I'll give them a 15 to 20% discount on the price I'm selling to that particular retail shop for. So they started buying from me at least half a pallet or a pallet at a time. And then when I wasn't in town, I mean, I would either say to them, I began to let the shopkeepers know, well, these wholesalers, they could also get the Dalgety cheese from these small wholesalers. And then that gave me a chance to spend more time building the markets in outer cities. Then I covered the whole United Kingdom in that format. And by that time now I've made another, what you call a distributor, which is somebody bigger than things. So the distributor would buy 10 pallets at a time. A wholesaler would probably just buy one pallet at a time. So the distributor now would want another 15 to 20% off, but then don't forget they're buying in bulk. Yep.
Absolutely.
So then I found that one of the largest ethnic distributors in those days, which is a company that carried, it's called Enco. They did the Enco hot pepper sauce, and I managed to convince them, or actually they actually got interested in what I was doing because I was meeting their sales guys on the road, you know, and one of their sales rep actually said to me, hey, you know, I think my sales director wants to meet you too, you know, because we've seen your teeth everywhere, and we think it's something that we could help you distribute. So I went off there, put on my shirt and tie, and went up there, you know. And they took on the distribution, and that gave me a lot more time to spend on literally begin to build a factory effectively.
Yeah.
You know, because in those days, I mean, I was operating, was utilizing another company's machine, and then packing a lot of the stuff in my house. You know, so I almost was running a whole factory in my South London apartment flat that I had. You know, I think luckily enough, I began to give all the neighbors tea to drink, so they weren't bothered. So that's how it probably been. They would have got a council down on me, you know what I mean? But I was ever so friendly and always give them tea to drink. So they left me alone, you know. Although they saw me in and out with boxes 24 hours, lifting things in and out of the house as well as the whole factory.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, I think it's probably good that they knew it was tea that you were packaging
Yes.
in there.
So all the old white ladies and so forth, I'll have them drinking all these little herbal teas.
That's
It was unusual for some of them, but I try and find a nice one. I never give any of them Cerecy, believe it or not. Else that would have been the end of me.
Oh, dear.
But you know,
The old Jamaican women, I give Cerecy to, but definitely not the old white women.
no.
No.
But Mark, that's really instructive, because I think sometimes when we start businesses, we think it's just going to be an overnight success. It's such a brilliant idea, it's going to work. But it sounded like you slogged for years, and you went out there, you got in front of customers, and you sold rather than just expected, you know, the thing to fly off the shelves, which it seldom does. So do you want to just tell us a little bit more about the importance of selling and why that was so important?
Oh yes, well that's the ultimate situation. Why are you making a product that you don't want to go out and sell? Or
Yeah.
if you think about it, only you could know your product very well anyhow. So even if eventually you get someone to sell it, initially you are the one that have to build that brand. You know, you're the one that have to go in front and speak to people and convince them, you know, that this product is good or this product is better than the competition. You know, so I mean, although there was no other option, really and truly. I mean, obviously, I come from an engineering background, and I didn't come from a sales and marketing background. I mean, there again, I just started reading books on sales and marketing and things like that, you know, to enhance my my sales positioning and my marketing style. You know, I mean, my marketing style was simple because I didn't have the big capital to do any major stuff. So it was always just tastings because I believe my product was always better tasting than anyone else.
Yeah.
So literally in the early days, everyone that had any cake sale or any, you know, I mean, any form of a promotion, I was there with a table, a chair, and a kettle. You know, not even a chair, mainly the table and a kettle. Because I'd be standing, and everyone that came into that building, I would say, "Good morning, good afternoon. Here's a free cup of tea." I never even tried to sell the tea. I just offered them a free cup of tea, and then you start seeing them changing and saying, "Oh, this is a bit different from the Twinings or whatever," and then they started coming back. But I mean, it was hundreds and hundreds. Every Saturday, Sunday, I was there with my table and a kettle at all these different functions offering tea. You know. So that was pretty much how the brand was pretty much mode. I always say it's in an analog mode because now I'm actually trying to move to the digital format.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Mark, what tea would you offer? Because there's a range.
You know what? There's for every moment with I'll get it. And I mean, sometimes people ask me that question, you know, I find it very difficult to actually answer because depending on what's happening with me or at the time or wherever, I drink certain teas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, if I'm feeling stressed, I might actually drink a chamomile or a lemongrass to relax. But the teas, in terms of like really keeping my momentum, I definitely drink the Cersei. I mean, now I drink. I actually add soursop to the Cersei sometimes because
Okay.
a few years back, I my posture had gone a little. You know, you get a bit older, a bit larger,
Okay.
and I was diagnosed that it had gone to like I think there's a point. It's supposed to be 0.2, and it went to 0.5. So I started drinking that, and then when a year later, it actually went down to 0.3. So I knew that, well, okay, it's working. So I started drinking the soursop every day because of that. And I think as you get older, you start to drink the ones that you feel are a lot more healthy. You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely.
sericine, turmeric. You know, you start
Yeah.
drinking those ones, whereby when you're younger, you drink all the nice ones, a lot more peppermint and the honeys and gingers and the instant
Yes.
gingers and
Yeah.
you know, and I still do drink those a lot in the winter. And sometimes you forget to drink one, and then one day, you know, you might not drink a particular flavor for a month or two. And then one day, you know, I just pick it up and I drink it. Oh, it tastes very nice, you know, because
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you start drinking that again, you know. So,
Yeah.
so it tends to become a rule around, you know, with all the flavors, apart from the
Yeah.
ones that you feel you're drinking for a particular health benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
that's an unfair question though,
no
because it's like, who's your favorite child?
no. I was more thinking in terms of the tastings.
Yeah.
What tea you would use for the tastings? When you
Oh,
say
for the
you were doing those
tastings.
yeah, but I want to come back to what you just said there. But for the tastings, when you're giving teas, everybody's coming, they'd get a cup of tea, have a cup of tea. What tea would you be using there, or would you have a small variety?
Okay, I'm trying to get a question right. The ones that I would like to like from a tasting point of view
No.
Where
or
you were,
testing.
where people were coming and you would say, oh, I'm going to do a taste, that you were using it as marketing, and you would
Okay, okay.
yeah, you
Oh,
had your table and your kettle. What did you have, a specific tea that you were having people taste, or a small
okay.
selection?
Normally, okay, I get the answer, the question. Normally, what you tend to do when you communicate with anyone, right? You would always start by asking them if they drink any teas or any herbal teas, and if they say, "Oh, I like ginger," so I would give them our ginger. If they say,
Ah.
"I like Cersei," I give them our Cersei.
Yeah.
Because then there's a comparison of what they would look for, and most of the time you always won because
Yeah.
normally they might say, "Oh, I drink lemon and ginger." What is the brand? Twinings or whatever. And I said, "Okay, try our lemon and ginger." And they're like, "Wow, this is lemon and ginger," you
Yeah.
know.
Mm,
And
mm,
right away you get a conversion there. You know, if they say they like
yeah.
peppermint, I'll give them a peppermint. And then there's always the person who might come and say, "Oh, I don't like tea whatsoever at all." They're the big challenge. I actually like those kind of people. "I don't like tea. I'm a coffee person." Yeah. And
Yeah.
then normally what you do is you look for one of the nice flavored ones, you know, right?
Yeah.
So I would give them something like a honey and ginger, or instant ginger, one of the
Yeah.
nice, smooth. And then they're like, I could live
Yeah.
with this, you know?
Yeah.
And that's normally a really big win, you know what I mean to say? Because when you
Brilliant.
could convert somebody who literally says that I'm not a tea drinker and give them something and they then begin to say, and you see them slowly start shaking their
Oh, you know
head.
what? That really shows how you know your stuff, because
Absolutely.
I am not a tea drinker. It's always been a joke in our house that I'm not a proper adult, because my mom would always say to me, when you grow up, you will drink tea. When you grow up, you drink. But when I was younger, I just didn't like it at all. But what is the one that I really love drinking? It's the honey and ginger.
Uh-huh.
So that just,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
interesting you say that, and I like the fact that you say, oh, we're the kind of people that are a challenge, because I kind of have one for
Yes.
you. I would love to taste a blood orange tea. I went
And
somewhere, I can't even
What?
remember where it was, and they had this blood orange tisane. And me being I don't really drink tea. I saw orange on there, so I thought this is fruity. This is different. Blood orange tisane or something like that. And I thought, oh no, Mark needs to make this. Mark needs to make this. Mark's version is going to be better. Oh dear. So, I get that, and I'm glad you're inspired by us,
Yes,
the non-tea drinkers that will be converted. But going back to what you were saying about the teas that you drink, and you mentioned the soursop, and that's where the medicinal side
yes.
of the herbal teas
For
comes in.
cancers or the turmeric, for instance. I mean,
Yeah.
turmeric is anti-inflammatory. So one of the
Yeah.
things, especially during COVID time, I mean, as you know, most viruses, bacteria, right?
Mm.
Basically, the home is the mucus and inflammation in your system.
Oh.
So if you could reduce the mucus inflammation in your system, you almost would never really get it will minimize the amount of times that you get sick. Yeah,
Oh,
because there's no way for the virus or the bacteria to be living, you know.
yeah.
So drinking turmeric helps to, get rid of mucus and inflammation in your system. And I mean, one of our greatest development was one of the most unusual blends, which is turmeric and black pepper. Because what we tend to do, we start with,
Yes.
we have all these different families, right? A turmeric family, a ginger family, a peppermint family, a soursop family, a moringa family. And we start normally with like a pure version, and then we start enhancing it with, with another thing, like turmeric and then turmeric with ginger, which is inflammation with the ginger, then is also good for the chest and the stomach lining. Then, we do turmeric, and then we end up doing turmeric and black pepper, which was feel like, oh, black pepper, why was black pepper in the tea? But then you see the thing with black pepper, when blended with turmeric, it helps dissolve the turmeric in your blood it accelerates it by 2,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we end up developing this here. And a lot of times, I mean, the development is really based on listening to the consumer.
Yeah.
A lot of times people come and say, this is what I do. It's like, for instance, one of our interesting, I mean, it's just listening. I mean, probably back then my mom told me to learn to listen. But I can remember how lemon and ginger was developed, I was quite happy that our Sericiti was a very, good selling tea and so forth in the market. And then one time I went to a shopkeeper in Tottenham, in West Green Road, and he would say to me, my top selling tea is lemon and ginger. I wasn't doing lemon and ginger then, and then he showed me this box of Twinings, lemon and ginger. And I bought it and I was like, okay. But then I went to one of my colleagues, one of my friends, or I think it's even my mom. She had a box of this lemon and ginger. And then one morning I saw her grating more ginger in it. And I'm like thinking, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, well, I mean, it tastes good, but I have to put a bit more ginger. I'm like, I'm going to make a lemon and ginger beer. Nobody has to scrape any more ginger inside of it, right? So then that's how lemon and ginger was developed, right? And next, once I developed it, and 6 months later, I stopped by the same shop because, man, that lemon and ginger you Dalgety, it's outselling the Twinings lemon and ginger, But sometimes it's just simple observations like that. I mean, another person might have just seen that and literally just, not noticed it, But from the time I saw, and sometimes a lot of products are developed based on just simple things I might observe people are doing, or someone might say, oh, I buy this, okay, I do turmeric, but I always add a little bit of, sprinkle some black pepper into it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but a lot of times that's how the products are actually developed. And, as there's a different, each product has its own advantage in terms of, the health benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, do you have to include education, particularly with the medicinal side of some of the herbs that you're using?
You know what? We don't sell the health, we educate people about the health benefits, but we don't sell the health benefits, because that would move the products into, I don't want people to think that these products are medicinal.
Yeah.
I mean, we try to say people like it's a lifestyle product. It's a product you should use these products to avoid heading to the hospital. Not wait until you get to the hospital or you're now
Yeah.
sick to decide, well, I am now going to drink some Sericiti because I've now got diabetes. Why don't you just drink it before so you don't get diabetes?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
why wait until there's a situation or a consequence for you to drink it? What you should be doing is making it a lifestyle where every day you drink You know what I mean? If you like 3 cups of tea, you start with a stir tea. Midday you have a ginger. Mid-afternoon you have a lemongrass or a chamomile. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? For your indigestion in the evening, you drink a peppermint to make sure your food digests in the night. You know, but make it into a lifestyle. You know, so we,
Yeah.
we we basically try to push the lifestyle part, but then on the back end, when we with our leaflet, we will then educate people the benefits of the teas.
So Mark, you've been in the game for 20 plus years now. I know you were doing some stuff before you started the company in 1993, and I read somewhere that your manufacturing facility pumps out a couple of millions of tea bags every day. I mean, what are some of the numbers involved in the Dalgety operation now?
Um, Well, the manufacturing facility is out in Norfolk now. To tell the truth, we pivoted the business about 7 years ago because I keep having to buy new tea bag machines, which is not a very is a very expensive habit.
Yeah.
And the business almost the turnover was almost limited only to my production capability.
Hmm.
So basically, I spent a number of years trademarking my brand name and intellectual property, which was a very expensive habit. And then after then, what we actually did, we began to outsource some of our manufacturing. We have our own manufacturing facility, which,
Hmm.
I mean, give or take, I don't know, it's probably about, in terms of tea bags, I mean, let's say 4 or 5 machines doing about 100 tea bags a minute or something like that. We do
Wow.
it in minutes, how many tea bags per minute.
Wow.
But then what I also do now is outsource some of my manufacturing. But I mean, at one point we were busy pushing through with manufacturing. I could have acquired a tea company called Spat, at least all the
Okay.
machinery, but improved our production capability. Um, but then also one of the challenges is when you do herbal teas, it's not the easiest of teas to tea bag, because basically each one of the teas tend to have their own behavioral pattern, their own behavioral properties with regards
Yeah.
to densities, flowabilities, and so forth. And then most tea bag machines are built to tea bag, say, a normal cup of tea, a PG or Lipton
Right.
cup of tea. So what happens? You find that, I mean, with herbal teas, it's like if you think of it, you have in a car and you have to use kerosene, diesel, gasoline, water, all of that to drive the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to cater for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Wow.
so I mean, but that's the sort of thing that get me excited as an engineer, because then, I mean, even with
I
the
can
machine
hear that.
manufacturers, I had to work with them for most of the families, for each machine to tell them what to make adjustments to make sure that that tea is tea bagged in an effective manner. Because there's not one machine doesn't always fit all, especially if you
Yeah.
don't want to lose production time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I hear that. I hear that. So
yeah.
just give us an idea of the scale now. I mean, your manufacturing capability in terms of, without giving away intellectual property, of course. What kind of volumes are you producing on a daily basis?
Well, I mean, on our production capabilities, I mean, I would say, let's see, what we're capable of doing is at least easily about 4 or 5 million tea bags a day or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what. But I mean, yeah, that's our production capabilities. It's
Yeah.
in that capacity.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
So
lot of
In terms, because we
tea.
look at it as a number of tea bags, but that's what we're
Yeah.
capable of doing. I mean, that's over 24 hours period, because I mean, when you have a factory, right, at the end of the day, ideally, right, what you're trying to do is max the capacity, and that means it's having a machine running 24 hours a day. Obviously, we don't always run 24 hours a day. If we get a big order, we build. In order to that, we run between 8 to 12 hours.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
And of course, you've expanded beyond the UK now and EU, and you're doing a lot of trading in Africa, because, to be honest, most of the times I speak to you, you're either in Ghana or Nigeria, or so I know you're doing business out there. What's it like doing business on the African continent versus doing business here in the EU?
I think doing business in the African continent is actually very inspirational for people like me,
Mm.
because you see, a lot of the news that you would normally see in the likes of the western part of the world is always when there's some disaster in Africa. But
Yeah.
when you get there, right, you really see real serious players. I mean, I say to people, you see a husband and wife owning a hotel about the size of a Marriott or a Hilton hotel, and they're not the only ones. I mean, sometimes it's even more decked out than the Hilton in London. It's
Absolutely.
got 100 and something rooms and so forth. And it's not just one person like that. He's not the star boy. There's always somebody that has a hotel like him or bigger than him. And
Yeah.
it's always the black people. I mean, I don't see any other than black people owning pharmacists, pharmaceutical companies, massive rum companies, you name it,
Yeah.
it's all owned by black people. I've met guys with truck and transportation companies, like one of my business associates in Ghana, and he's got like 200 trucks. I mean, big, massive oil trucks rolling around the place, it's not a guy from Europe.
Mm.
So to me, it definitely gives me full inspiration and the capacity and how these guys think. I mean, especially like my Nigerian business associates. I mean, there's a few of them. They just have their own private jet because they think that to travel first class is for losers. You know what I mean to say? But that's the way these guys are thinking.
Yeah.
I'm not traveling first class. I want to have my own plane. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You grow up in the UK. Sometimes from the time a guy, does some work and he manages to get, I don't know, a BMW with some mag wheels, he thinks he's made it in life. And then you meet these African guys who's like, I mean, that's the car I buy for my son or something like that, because I'm not driving no BMW, I need a Bentley, and then he has a Bentley. He doesn't want to travel for us, like he wants to get his own private jet,
Exactly.
So the capacity that these guys take on Africa, I don't know, because it's a big continent with 1.4 billion people. And I
Absolutely.
mean, sometimes, just like many years ago, as a little story I could remember, when I first went to Nigeria, I like to tell this story actually. I met a young guy who was a farmer selling sorrel. And I wanted to buy like about 5 to 6. I could have pushed it to 10 tons. I couldn't even afford any at that time. It was almost 15 years ago. And he only wanted to sell me a container,
Yeah.
which had about 15 tons. I mean, it was a good price. It was like $1.50, and I was paying about £2 a kilo for it at that time. And he couldn't understand me from England with my, proper, well dressed, and him sitting on with a short pants and a rubber slipper, right? And I didn't want to buy this container from him, So the first question that hit me is that he then asked me where I came from, where I was originally from, and I said I'm from Guyana. And he didn't know where Guyana was, right? So I explained to him where Guyana was, and he's like, okay, he was happy with that. Then he said, how many people live in your country? And I said, it's about 1 million, which I even exaggerated. Guyana only has about 800,000 people. And he said, 1 million people in your whole country? He said, my village has got 8 million. And I'm like, you sit down in the UK or you see these movies and you think average village in the likes of Nigeria is probably 2,000 people. The guy's village has got 8 million people.
I hear you.
So then he began to cry how poor he is, that how he only manages to sell one container every month. Now that one container is £15,000 or more. I'm talking about 15 years ago. And he thinks he's not doing very well in life. I mean, there's people in the city in London who will be happy to earn 100 grand. And he's making 15 grand a month, right? With his rubber slipper and a short pants. And then he says to me that he is now measuring himself up. He said, the top guy in my village, he ships out over 40 containers into the Middle East every month. So he is measuring himself up to the top guy in his village. And I'm thinking, well, if the top guy in his village is doing 40 containers a month, could you imagine the top guy in Nigeria, what is going on? So, being in those environments, it just shows your level of thinking into a total different sphere of capacity. And that's why I love to be around Africa, because that's the kind of stuff that sees me and inspires me. Definitely as a black person.
I absolutely concur with that because I've had a similar experience. In the Caribbean, we have this daft conversation about small island and big island.
Yes.
And I remember I was having a conversation with someone, again, Nigerian, and they were asking, so Colin, how big is Jamaica? Because, they hear about Jamaica and everything. And he said, how many people are in Jamaica? And I, at the time I proudly said, 2.4 million people. And he looked at me puzzled and he said, only that?
Ah, exactly, exactly.
Because
I think
he said
Jamaica's
a
done a
similar
very good
thing.
job at a PR of themselves, you know.
I'm
Definitely.
telling
I
you.
mean, everyone in the world knows Jamaica. I mean, if it's
I'm
any,
telling you.
even when I'm moving around Africa, they
Yeah.
definitely don't know Guyana. Then they don't even know the word Caribbean. Then I say it's near Jamaica. Like, Bob Marley. I always say they probably need to put Bob Marley on the money in Jamaica because I mean he's the person who's probably taking Jamaica to the other heights, you know.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
Oh dear.
So
But
so
that's sorry,
sorry.
that's the beauty of exposure.
Absolutely.
Really just
Yes,
exposure and expanding our
Yeah.
minds, our horizons, and some what we can aspire to.
I honestly believe that every black person needs
Mm,
to spend time in Africa.
oh yes,
Because
mm,
if we were to go on the continent, and it doesn't matter where, Nigeria, Ghana, um, Rwanda, if we go and spend time on the continent, our perspective is shifted because
mm,
we see normalized black success.
mm,
When
yes,
you look at these countries, everybody looks like us
mm,
and they're doing
yes.
really well.
mm,
Oh yes, and I mean the other thing about it is that even like in regards to you will see big constructions. I mean like in Ghana, big road motorways like
Mm,
like the Spaghetti Junction almost and it's all black engineers. You know everybody
absolutely.
there. Most of the time, that's all you ever see.
mm,
Everything, like one of the things I actually marvel about is like in Ghana, there's a lot of Land Cruisers, and Land Cruisers are about 100,000 US dollars, right? And it's
Yeah,
thousands and thousands of them. And then you'll see a
that's it.
second-hand car dealer, and he's got about 30, 40 spanking new Land Cruisers on his forecourt.
On his forecourt. Yeah.
And he's not even a main dealer. He's a second-hand trader. He just went and bought his own 40, 50 Land Cruisers at 100 to
Mm,
150,000 US dollars, and he's selling it.
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever seen a second-hand dealer with 40 Land Cruisers in the UK on a
In the UK.
forecourt.
Yeah.
mm,
You'll be lucky to see two or three, and that's
Yeah.
second-hand, not spanking new.
I'm telling you. Wow. So Mark,
mm.
what does the future look like for you? I mean, take us through the next 12 months. Sorry, 12 months. Yeah, the next year. What's happening for Mark Dalgetty and Dalgetty Teas?
Well, right now we are on a global journey, and I mean, one of the things I had to do in terms of pivoting the business is moving from what I said. I built the business in pretty much an analog manner, and
Mm,
right now it's all about digitization.
I
Um,
hear that.
I'm not a highly digital person, so I've bought a lot of digital people around me.
Good. Good.
I focus a lot now more on product development and new market development, and then I got my back office with people who were highly digital. I mean, pushing through to new markets. As I said, back to my old philosophy of root of least resistance, we headed into Africa first because that was the consumer people of African origin and Asian origin is the people that I was selling products to in the UK.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons I started heading to those parts where they have the volumes. So I spent time there because I needed to understand the market dynamics and how things move, right? Now we're trying to use Instagram, social media across, I mean, because these places is all about using influencers and things like that. So that's
Yeah.
why I spend time a lot in those parts of the world.
Mm,
Um, and then, or more importantly, you might or might not know, we just recently won one of probably the best competition the UK has
yes.
ever offered to black businesses, which is
Yes.
the Channel 4 Black in Business Initiative, where they offered £100,000 in free advertisement on a mainstream TV station.
Yeah.
I mean, I always remember when I first started business, I always say, I wonder when I'll ever be able to do an advert on a mainstream TV where, the lights years ago was like £10,000 or something like that for a 1 minute or half a minute
For
slot,
half a minute. Yeah. Yeah.
so to be given that opportunity, and we were one of the winners in that competition.
In
So,
fact, one of only five.
yeah, one in five for over a
Thousands of
thousand
applications.
companies
So
that
well
applied.
done.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We will have AdWords going out in Dalgetty Channel 4 to broadcasting to about 49 million viewers. So that's a big
Fantastic.
thing, which has accelerated our our opportunity to now begin to push Dalgetty into the mainstream market
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the UK. which is always my ambition. It's just that, I mean, I knew that it was going to be costly. And that I was kind of like going around the block, going into the Africa and so forth, try to earn enough money so that eventually I could come back to hit the mainstream market, in UK and the likes of America.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we've really been putting a lot of positioning of the product into not just Africa, but we also warehouse in the US. And then we also, one of our big wins is convincing South Koreans now to drink our teas, especially the instant one that you like. And they went and show it off to their friends in Japan. So the Japanese began to like it. So last month, we actually now signed the same South Korean distributor to be a distributor in Japan because he's got relatives and relations in Japan who love Dalgety teas. So we on this push to building a global brand, which is always, one of my main ambition from the start was to ultimately try and make Dalgety pretty much a global brand like the likes of definitely Lipton or something like that,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, probably the black Lipton, if you want to call it,
Yeah. No. The Dalgety.
Yes, the Dalgety.
So it sounds like you're really 20 years on, just getting started.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
definitely. We now only really starting of the thing. I mean, we spent 20 years positioning and understanding business. I mean, I never spent much time in. I mean, most of the things I've learned in business are I would say by common sense approach, and also just looking and listening to other business people.
Yeah.
I think in terms of a black person, is also a limited of role models in the UK that we have.
Yeah.
So that becomes a challenge because you most of the time you're sort of like on the outside looking in, peeping in at what the big, white business guys are doing or the Indian business guys are doing, because a lot of times they have a lot more history and people to speak to with regards to understand how to scale a business and make it into a multinational, multi-million, multi-billion dollar company.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of that, definitely not in the UK. So I was always on the outside looking in. Now I'm actually trying to do it myself. So that's where my journey is right now. Is trying to move into that global space.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Mark, we're just so encouraged by your journey, brother.
That sounds amazing. So you're going global, international.
Yeah.
That's where you are now, and for the next 12 months. Can I ask then, what would Mark Dalgety's legacy be? What would be your legacy?
What would be my next?
Your legacy.
What is your legacy?
Oh, my legacy. I never thought about that, actually. You're so working, you don't even realize. I didn't even realize I was in business over 25 years until a few years back. I was doing something and a young woman said to me, "Oh, I grew up on Dalgety cheese." And I'm like, "But I mean, how old are you?" I mean, I only started the other day. And then she was like, "Oh, I'm 35 years. My mom was giving me it since I was 3 years old." Like, is it that long? Yeah.
That's brilliant.
But I mean, I think the legacy is really just to build a global brand. Make sure that Dalgety stays in the psychic and in the populace of the world ultimately, like any major brand, And hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate what I've done and encourage other black brands to look in that way and not just think that every product that you've done is just got to be just for a little community in Brixton or Carlsbad or something like that, There's a lot of us out there. I mean, it might seem it's not a lot. I mean, you have a big continent there that needs help. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You put up money there and don't bother sell it anywhere else and be extremely successful, And all the resources are in Africa too. That's the irony of the matter, what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything, because I mean, one of the things that I forgot to mention that we do also, we pride ourselves in working a lot with small farmers. So what tends to happen since from the days in Guyana, I mean, there's no one farmer that has 100 acres. We have 100 and something farmers with 1 acre. So we spend a lot of time, helping underprivileged communities to develop, and to earn a living and so forth. And we did that in Guyana for years, where, I literally, sometimes I know in the early days, it could be minus 10 degrees in London, and you suddenly realize that, I mean, when you're on the road selling, you're heading to Birmingham, you're not just trying to sell that tea just for your family, your immediate family, but
Yeah.
it's actually for 100 little guys sitting waiting on Western Union, asking you, how did it go? How did it go, Mr. Dalgett? Do you think next year we'll be able to sell you more? And then you realize that, my God, you know what I mean? There's so many people literally depending on you to sell that tea.
Yeah.
It's not just about you just even putting some lunch and breakfast on your table for your family, but for so many other people, you
That's
know?
brilliant, man.
Yeah.
And that becomes a serious driver. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because that puts a lot of pressure on you to just go and
Yeah.
sell. You know what I mean to say? Because now you're not even selling because you want a fancy car. You're selling for other people's survival. You know.
Absolutely.
So that becomes, and I mean, in Ghana we started that. I mean, we got a lot of small villages now that, you know what I mean, is collecting raw materials for us. We teaching them how to dry goods and dry the raw materials, and same process that I pretty much did 20 years ago in Guyana and some of the other Caribbean countries. So it's almost the same thing now we're doing in Africa, in small villages around, you know, Ghana and so
Yeah.
forth, you know.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Brilliant.
Mark, I
Yes.
think I'm gonna have to invite myself on one of your trips to Ghana, you know.
Oh, yes,
Um,
definitely.
let's do it, man. I want to see
Yes,
what's happening out on our continent.
Mm,
yes, yes.
Absolutely.
mm,
Wow.
mm.
But before you go though, Mark,
Yeah.
you've really inspired us.
Mm,
We have loved hearing the story of Dalgety Teas,
brilliant.
how you transitioned from an industrial chemistry background to be selling one of the most impactful, probably one of the most famous tea brands in Europe, and likely to be, as time goes on, in Africa and also the rest of the world,
Mm.
especially in the US. So we are absolutely inspired by that. But before you go, we've got to do the quick fire dozen.
We have to.
Yeah, nobody escapes this. All right. So this is the quick fire dozen. Don't think too hard. Just say it as it comes to your mind. Okay. So
Is it the quick fire dozen or the quick fire
well,
baker's dozen?
baker's dozen. For you, we're doing a baker's dozen. So it's
Just
13.
13.
So first question: jollof,
Or rice and peas.
Oh, rice and peas, obviously.
Okay.
I definitely like my
Right.
rice and peas.
Okay.
Well, we thought spending time in
Actually,
Ghana,
actually,
you
actually,
might.
even rice and peas becomes a thing. Definitely rice and peas. In Guyana, we say peas and rice. You
Is
know,
that right?
Oh, okay.
like you know, you know, like there's an issue between Trinidad and Guyana where we say who says curry chicken or is it chicken curry?
Chicken.
Or
Yeah,
Jamaica
I
is it
hear
peas
that.
and rice, or
Curry,
Guyana is it
go
rice and
curry.
peas?
I hear that. I hear that.
Oh dear.
Second question: plantain.
Or plantain.
Oh, well, I don't know. I just say plantain. I don't know how that one
Okay.
sounds.
Plantain. Right. Okay.
All
Right.
right. Beach holiday.
Or city break.
Beach holiday or city break? Wow, that's a difficult one. I'm not really a beach person. I head right back to Guyana again. We have these interesting beaches. It's actually more eco, what do you call it? Eco, more into the eco tourism
Eco-friendly.
kind of stuff. So we have these fresh waterfalls and beaches, which we could call them beaches, but we call them creeks in Guyana. Yeah, because one of the things that normally when I go to the beaches, like in Barbados, the water looks blue and nice, and then I'm always kind of like get puzzled by this because it's salty. Because in Guyana,
Oh
with our
yes.
kind of beaches, right, or what we would call beaches or creeks, it's fresh water. The water that's coming from the hills, it gets filtered down. You could almost drink it, you know. So
Ah.
that is the one I kind of like more would prefer. You know, the more creeks that they have around Guyana, because you know Guyana means the land of many waters.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have like a river called the Essequibo River, which is like 15 miles wide. I mean, there's even islands within that river to cross it.
Wow.
You know, it takes like in a speedboat, I don't know, 2-3 hours to cross in a high speedboat. You know, so
Wow.
I mean, I'm still even exploring Guyana as I live here because there's different parts of it that I mean, you know, there's Rupani, Savannah, there's I don't know, horse riders and cowboys. You know, then you go to another area which is just like a Pomeroon, which is the untamed Venice, where everybody goes to school in boats and all that sort of stuff. So
Nice.
A lot of my holidays is still trying to explore Guyana.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh wow! So with all that fresh water, there's probably one of those little islands where Mark's got a table and a kettle. Oh dear.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Here we go.
Cash flow
Or capital appreciation.
Say that again.
cash flow
Or capital appreciation.
That's an interesting question. Cash flow or capital?
appreciation.
Cash flow.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
It's
Yeah.
not a trick question. It's not a
Yeah.
trick question. I
Yeah,
promise
yeah,
you.
yeah. Cash flow, I would say. I mean, both of them are actually important, funny enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting watching your face,
Your-
Mark, when
yeah.
you're like, cash flow.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Here we go.
Netflix
Or YouTube.
Netflix.
Okay.
Okay.
Big one now. Reggae
Or Afrobeats.
Afrobeats for me now. Because I remember I'm a soca man. I'm a carnival person, you know. So basically, you should have probably said reggae and soca. But now now
Yeah.
Afrobeats, and I love the fact that Afrobeats is actually moving across the world because I actually think that culturally it's actually beginning to fuse us from the Caribbean with Africa even more.
Absolutely.
And well, not even the Caribbean. I think blacks in the diaspora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's helping to fuse us more. So it's lovely to see Afrobeats and African artists that are able to come into America or Europe or the Caribbean and
Yeah.
I mean and get an audience. It's absolutely good because the next move is for us to know either whether it's in the reggae genre or the soca calypso genre to begin to have shows in Africa.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And you'd be there with your sound system.
exactly.
Dalgety Sounds. New business venture.
Who knows? Right. Here we go.
Listening to music
Or listening to podcasts.
Music. Listen to music.
Okay.
Yeah. Dark chocolate
Or milk chocolate.
Wow, that was a hard one for me because I'm not a big chocolate person. I mean, I reckon dark chocolate sounds good, but I don't know. I'm probably thinking of a black women.
Okay.
Right.
Stocks and shares.
Or crypto.
I would say stocks and shares. I don't know much about crypto at the moment.
Yeah.
It seems a new world. I'm still behind, you know. But yeah, I would say stocks and shares at the
I hear
moment.
that. I absolutely hear that.
Okay, here we go then. Samsung
Or Apple.
Oh, Samsung.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in
good,
Samsung.
good.
Okay.
All right. Now,
Right.
now, bearing in mind the sound system, all of that. Night in
Or night out.
Night out.
Okay. Okay.
With the Afrobeats. And a cup of tea. Okay.
Pepsi or Coke?
I reckon Coke. I mean, they've penetrated your mind so much you wouldn't think about them anyhow.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate marketing machine, I would say. Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola brand, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I half expected you to say Dalgety Teas.
Now we're going to Hell TV. We're going to Hell TV.
See it there? Now, this is the big one now. This is the massive one. Wars have been fought over this.
Oh dear.
Generations have been steeped into this, Mark. Oxtail
Or curry goat. Or goat curry.
Oxtail or curry goat. I'm tempted to go for oxtail.
See it there? See it there? It's the we do this all the time. Judy loves curry goat. I love oxtail.
I love oxtail
Yes,
too.
yes.
So
Probably just as
fantastic.
much as you. It's a big one for Colin.
It's a massive one. Massively.
I like both of them
Mark,
mostly, but I mean, I borderline on the oxtail, and that's probably
yeah.
because we have a dish in Guyana. It's one of our national dishes called pepper pot, and it actually uses a lot
Yes.
of oxtail.
Yeah.
It's flavored from Kazarip. You know, it's a highly flavored
Right.
version of a Jamaican oxtail. You know, using
Is it
something
like,
called Kazarip.
is it called
It's
pepper
black
pot
and thing,
stew?
but yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. But it's
Yeah.
made from something called Kazarip. But we use mainly
Yeah.
oxtail in there.
mm.
Nice. Nice.
And then I guess as well, Mark, with all of the cattle that your grandfather would have holding up the traffic.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, that you
believe
can
you me,
see
my
there.
grandfather never liked killing any of his cows. The worst thing to do is sell them. He mainly used them for milk and so forth. And he actually
Okay.
even gave the cows. I think at one time he probably thought they were all pets because even a lot of them had names. So all the grandchildren that had cows, that had a Mark, that had a black bull called Mark. That all the children they had all these different cows with names. You know.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much. We have learned so much about the Dalgety story.
Mm,
We've learned about you, Mark, and your industrial
yeah.
chemistry background that went into sales and marketing of
Mm,
teas, and in a weird way, actually combines everything you've
yeah.
done, growing up on a farm, uh, working in, or rather studying chemistry and combining it into
Mm,
manufacturing and marketing what's now Dalgety Teas. So
yeah.
listen, thank you so much.
Yeah, the passion, Mark, that you shared, those nuggets in terms of going door to door, shop to shop, all of that. I think it's been really inspirational
Yeah,
and informative for the listeners to share all of that. So thank you so much for that, and of course, thank you for the teas.
absolutely.
Oh yes, definitely. Thank you also to Pitch Black Magazine. I think what you guys are doing is absolutely marvelous. I think it's important to, I mean, on both sides of the spectrum for us all to understand what we're doing, each person's journey. You're on a journey, inspiration, in terms of letting other entrepreneurs or people aspiring to be in businesses know what is going on out there. Because as I said, it's only we could tell our own story.
Yeah,
I mean, for most of history, it seems as though everybody's telling the black person story except us.
Absolutely.
And it's time we actually, take the bull by the horn and tell our own stories because a lot
yeah,
of the stories we even been hearing about ourselves are actually all the wrong stories, only to somebody else's benefit. So it is absolutely marvelous what you
yeah,
guys are doing.
yeah. Thank you,
Thank you, brother.
thank you. I think that's why we do it, because history is his story.
Yes,
Absolutely. We've now got to tell our story.
Mm,
But Mark, here's
yes,
one thing you can be assured of, brother. We will be celebrating you,
mhm.
we'll be cheering you on, and we'll even be challenging you to push the brand and push your story even further. So thank you very much for being an inspiration, not just for us, but for
yes,
young people
Mm,
coming up and wanting to be in business, wanting to be in
mm,
manufacturing,
mm,
wanting to make an impact and build a global business. So
mm.
thank
yes.
you, brother, and well done.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Thank you
you.
guys. Good to
Take
see
care,
you.
Mark.
Yeah, take care.